also behavioral. They also relate to things like teamwork, critical thinking, problem solving, the things that are needed for the fourth industrial revolution, as Her Excellency Samia Suluhu mentioned. Again, this is an area that can be worked on. We had very good examples from many of the ministers yesterday on the way in which post-secondary education is being linked to the needs of the labor market. I want to move on to the issue of resources because, as I said at the outset, Africa faces a double challenge, the need to both increase the number of years of schooling, but also increase quality. Many of the elements of quality actually do not involve a huge additional fiscal cost. It's the expansion of access which is costly. And this is where the need for resources comes. Now, the majority of resources for the expansion and access to education will have to come domestically. And for this, countries need to strengthen domestic resource mobilization. This is where the need, as well as increase the priority given to education. But beyond the volume of resources, there's also the issue of resource use and effectiveness of resource use. It's very easy to talk about waste, and because sectors like education and health and social protection take up such a large share of the government budget, it's very easy to say, oh, well, there's a lot of wasteful spending. To my mind, what is wasteful is if a child is in the classroom and is not ready to learn. That is why making sure that early childhood investments are made is very important, because this is what makes spending on basic education effective. What's wasteful is spending money on basic education if children are not learning. That's why the spending that needs to happen on basic education needs to be directed towards achieving stronger and better learning outcomes. Similarly, if there's spending on post-secondary and it doesn't result in the kinds of skills that are needed for young people to acquire jobs on learning and employability, to my mind, is a very good way of approaching the issue of effectiveness of resource use. I want to conclude, and I want to say that what has made me very enthusiastic over these past 2 days is the commitment that I have seen from everybody, from national authorities, from the private sector, from development partners, to make a huge dent on this issue of improving outcomes and expanding access to services. This makes me very positive and very confident. We've also heard excellent examples of things that work. The panel yesterday, I believe, was very inspiring to all of us. My wish at the end of this summit is that everybody goes away with the intention that the examples that we heard now, which are sporadic and are uncommon, my wish is that these become common, and that when we meet in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time, many of these examples are replicated. Thank you very much.
So much, Dr. Murthy, for your insightful thoughts that provide a lot of things to ponder on for the coming couple of hours. But also, it really sets up well for the next panel discussion, where we are going to have our distinguished heads of states to ponder on Africa's prosperity depends on its youthful demographics. How can Africa utilize its young population fully to achieve Agenda 2063? Excellencies, I'm honored now to invite to the stage the following heads of state for the first panel discussion, as I'd mentioned, looking onto Africa's prosperity that depends on its youthful demographics. How can Africa utilize its young population fully to achieve Agenda 2063? Allow me and join me to welcome to the stage Your Excellency Philippe Jacinto Nyusi, the President, Republic of Mozambique. And as he comes, may I also invite His Excellency Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, President, Republic of Malawi. Carlos Manuel Villanova, President, Democratic Republic of Sao Tome and Principe. And as it comes, last but not least, I would like to invite to the stage, and let's put our hands together for His Excellency Olavo Avelino Garcia Correira, Deputy Prime Minister, Republic of Cape Verde. And to moderate these wonderful sessions, allow me, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, to turn the floor over to CNBC Africa's Editor-in-Chief, Mr. Godfrey Mutitswa, to moderate the next two sessions. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Godfrey of CNBC.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies. I am hoping I have observed all the diplomatic notes that are important. I'm a storyteller, and I'm very privileged here, and I really feel a sense of belonging to be asked to this august gathering on a very important topic for our country. Yes, our country, Africa. I feel it's one of those occasions where I can say without contradiction that Africa is a country, for our problems are similar. We, as you have heard, all of you this morning, have the lowest average human capital index rating in the world at 89%. And our challenges are common. We face rising inflation. We face rising indebtedness in our households, in our governments. And we also know that, in addition to that, we know that inflation and unemployment are increasing. But at the same time, consistently throughout the continent, we also have the largest and the youngest population in the world, which is what brings us here today. Your Excellencies, let me spell out what my role is today here. By the end of this session, I've been told I must get a measurable commitment from all of you, just one, on advancing our youth agenda to achieve the long spoken about youth dividend. I also have been instructed to provide each of you with 5 minutes. And I know this is a particularly difficult one because you have important messages that you need to communicate. But for the purpose of getting the messages that we would like, that are going to be used to fill all the gaps that we had here this morning, I've been given 5 minutes for all of you. And you will see me lifting my eyebrow. It might be a shoulder, it might be a grunting. I will certainly do my best to try to live within the 5 minutes. But I do not want to leave the important messages that you need to leave with me here. Otherwise, I will be in trouble. And then lastly, out of each of you, I'm also hoping that I will be able to get 3 takeaways that I share with the organizers of our debate today. So please, Your Excellencies, promise to vote for you when you call for the reform of the United Nations in New York the next time you are at UNGA. Let me start first of all with the first set of questions. And this question, I am posing it to Your Excellency, the President of Mozambique, President Felipe Nyusi. Let me just get to your question. My notes are letting me down here. Okay. I have it. Your Excellency, we know that in each of our countries, half the population is female. We also know that our ladies are the most entrepreneurial on the continent. The statistics are there actually from the African Development Bank. And we also know that they are very, very responsible with their finances. So I want to know what you are doing to improve the female labor force participation. And I dare say even in that entrepreneurial field as well, where they are laboring without participation and beating the men, what more can we do to get the ladies to be more participative than they are currently?
Thank you. Allow me also to use the official language of Mozambique, Portuguese. Samahani ndugu zangu, nitasema Kireno leo. Kwa shauri nataka wananchi pia Mozambiki waisikie. Asanteni. Caros colegas, chefes de Estado, chefes das delegações, doutora Mônica, vice-presidente do Banco Mundial, todos presentes. Primeiro quero agradecer a oportunidade que os organizadores, neste caso concreto a Tanzânia e o Banco Mundial, nos dá para podermos partilhar experiências no âmbito de capital humano. Esta é matéria fundamental porque é a base do desenvolvimento dos nossos países. Eu vou escolher o caso de Moçambique como caso de estudo. Nós em Moçambique agora somos cerca de 32 bilhões de moçambicanos. Destes, 52% são jovens, mas também 51% são mulheres. A pergunta que me coloca concretamente o que fazemos para empoderamento, para o desenvolvimento do capital humano, concretamente para a mulher, ela é uma pergunta que não é isolada. Precisamos de teorias do que é preciso fazer. Primeiro, precisamos de garantir a vida, boa vida ou a vida de qualidade para todos os nossos compatriotas, mas, sobretudo, para as novas gerações. Para isso, é preciso facilitar as condições, como acabamos de dizer aqui, ter água, como acabamos de dizer aqui, ter água,
Bako. May I request the delegates to use their translation tools, because I'm going to talk on my national language. Waheshimiwa wakuu wa nchi na wawakilishi wa wakuu wa nchi, Waheshimiwa makamu wa rais mliopo, Mheshimiwa Dr. Hussein Ali Mwinyi, Rais wa Zanzibar na mwenyekiti wa Baraza la Mapinduzi, Waheshimiwa mawaziri wakuu mliopo, Mheshimiwa Dr. Hussein Ali Mwinyi, Rais wa Zanzibar na mwenyekiti wa Baraza la Mapinduzi, Waheshimiwa mawaziri wakuu mliopo, wakuu wa misafara, waheshimiwa mawaziri, makamu wa rais wa Benki ya Dunia Dr. Victoria Kwakwa, ambaye ni makamu wa rais wa Eastern and Southern Africa. Pia natambua uwepo wa Dr. Mamta Murthy, Vice President for Human Capital Development. Mustakabali mwema.
May I request you to stand up and we clap our hands. Sasa inawezekana. Can we all say that? The time is now, it is possible.
Na ziwe endelevu. Jambo la tano ni utekelezaji wa programu za hifadhi ya jamii katika uzalishaji. Yani
Excellencies, up next we have a video that is going to set the stage
is an important opportunity to come together to discuss what we can do to improve human capital outcomes and achieve results at scale. For African nations, the cost of inaction will be extremely high and potentially destabilizing. Without navigating this human capital crisis successfully, African societies and economies risk being trapped in a detrimental cycle of stagnant growth, soaring poverty rates, and increasing inequality. This situation could potentially escalate the drivers of fragility and conflict as uneducated and low-skilled youth grow increasingly disillusioned. There is also a lot at stake for the global community. By 2050, Africa will represent almost 40% of the children 0 to 14 years, and a quarter of the working age population in the world. Improvements in Africa mean improvements for the world. Improving human capital is not for the faint of heart or the impatient. If you allow me to be blunt, human capital is less visible than building a road and requires a longer-term commitment and investments. Yet when we are successful, we transform the lives of generations of children and youth, and the economic return is even higher. And change is possible. During this crisis, we have already experienced success and huge potential. The following examples that I will give are not exhaustive, but illustrate that progress is happening and continues to be possible. On the early years, countries like Rwanda are among the few to meet the Sustainable Development Goal target on malnutrition. It was done through efforts that included an innovative early childhood development intervention, a combination of home-based and community-based modalities. Rwanda dramatically increased its access to early childhood services in only 2 years, from 17% in 2020 to 62% in 2022. The stunting rate is also coming down. When it comes to learning outcomes, Kenya stands as a testament to the power of steadfast commitment to challenging reforms, ranging from curriculum development, provision of textbooks, and effective teacher management. Over the course of many years, through consistency and focus, the country has experienced a decade of substantial progress in learning, including a 50% improvement in reading. In Africa, teacher salaries account for more than 2/3 of government spending in education. Edo State in Nigeria sets a good example of how to increase efficiency of spending, leveraging technology and private sector partnerships. An innovative program equips teachers with tablets and scripted lessons for real-time progress tracking and continuous improvement. An extensive monitoring system fine-tunes resource allocation and has boosted teachers' attendance rates dramatically to 83%. Edo State demonstrates that even on limited budgets, education can deliver maximum value by efficiently harnessing teachers' potential. Innovations through partnerships across sectors have also enabled and accelerated the pace of change. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, increased financing for education and partnerships with non-state providers reduced the cost of education and resulted in 3.7 million additional students enrolled in public primary schools in a short period of time. Empowerment of women and girls is critical for human capital. Zambia shows us how to use social protection programs to protect the human capital of girls. They mitigated the effects of the rising food prices through cash transfers provided through digital payments that enabled 59,000 girls to access secondary education. And we know that representation matters. The 20 member countries participating in the Africa Centers of Excellence initiative across sub-Saharan Africa share our commitment to creating a network of women leaders and innovators in STEM and education fields. Under the leadership of our host, Her Excellency President Samia, Tanzania has also made enormous strides in ensuring that every child, and particularly adolescent mothers, can complete secondary schooling. The country is tackling this challenge in a holistic and coherent way. They are preventing dropout by expanding the school network and implementing an innovative Safe Schools program. At the same time, their new continuation policy is opening the doors of the formal education system to students who have already dropped out and young mothers. As a result, between 2018 and 2022, the number of girls enrolled in lower secondary school increased by 400,000 students, equivalent to a 35% increase in enrollment. We celebrate all these successes. Achieving the transformational changes urgently needed in our education system will require far greater funding. Sub-Saharan African countries currently spend about $280 purchasing power parity for every primary school student, compared to $1,500 in purchasing power parity terms in middle-income countries and about $8,400 in high-income countries. These large differences show that no country in sub-Saharan Africa is likely to effectively address the growing demand for education without significantly increasing their investments in human capital. However, more financing will not solve the problem at hand unless enhanced with a much more effectively, given that teacher salaries are normally the biggest component of education spending. Reforms that make teachers more effective are key to improving the overall efficiency of the sector. Systems need to reward teachers that improve and sustain better teaching practices. The education sector also needs to tackle low teacher motivation and high rates of absenteeism. Having more than 15% of teachers absent from school or not teaching is unacceptable. Beyond this, Ministry of Education need to build their capacity to deploy teachers equitably, ensure they have the teaching and learning material they need to do their jobs effectively, and provide the support they need to improve their teaching skills. Tackling these challenges successfully will improve sector efficiency and are just as critical as mobilizing more funding if national and continental goals for education are to be met. As a development partner, we at the World Bank stand with you at this time of human capital crisis. In addition to the Africa Human Capital Plan that we launched in 2019, we have prepared a new strategy for education in Western and Central Africa and an operational business plan for the Eastern and Southern African countries. We have also increased our financing for human capital. And our commitment to education spans several sectors, including interventions in health, social protection, water and sanitation, transportation, and other sectors that contribute to improving access and quality of schooling for all. Nevertheless, it is your national strategies, your ideas and financing that are the foundation of future progress. It is essential that we formulate a clear and actionable plan that explicitly outlines what it will take to achieve the goals. To make progress, we must break the silos and foster collaboration amongst all stakeholders. We need to develop a platform for action that transcends sectoral boundaries and unites government agencies, domestic partners, and external allies, including the pivotal private sector. That is why events like this one provide a critical opportunity for cooperation and collaboration. Over the last 2 days, we had so many creative ideas and inspirational examples of what can be done to accelerate progress on building human capital. We need to capitalize on the wealth of local ideas and solutions to address the challenges in Africa. We at the World Bank would like to convene a team of education experts from the continent and policymakers to find how to build on the successes that I've mentioned, to take them to scale, and to propose new ideas and solutions. We would work with regional bodies, individual governments, and our development partners to strengthen and sustain this team and provide global knowledge from other regions to plan and deliver tangible solutions at scale, accelerating progress in human capital developments. We will also review our human capital plan to reflect the Dar es Salaam Declaration. With political will and leadership and commitment from all of you, the highest level, we can together achieve our vision with our collective leadership to make human capital the cornerstone of our country's development strategies. I'm confident that we will build strong coalitions and allocate the needed resources to ensure a bright future for Africa, a future where all girls and boys reach their full potential, grow up well-nourished and ready to learn, attain real learning in the classroom, and enter the job market as healthy, skilled, and productive adults. I want to close with a phrase that one of the panelists just said yesterday. Yes, Africa can. There's no more time to waste. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kwakwa, for your inspirational words and for the work that you and your team, together with the government of Tanzania, have put to make this summit a great success. Your Excellency, I would now like to invite to the podium Honorable Dr. Stegomena Tax, Minister of Foreign Affairs and East Africa Cooperation of the United Republic of Tanzania, for her introductory remarks. Can we put our hands together as she comes to the podium?
Your Excellency, Dr. Samia Suluhu, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government and representatives, Dr. Victoria Kwaka, World Bank Regional Vice President for the Eastern and Southern Africa, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, Heads of international organizations and representatives, Excellencies, Heads of diplomatic missions, partners from the private sector, distinguished delegates, media representatives, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and privilege to stand before Your Excellencies to deliver introductory remarks on this special and a momentous occasion of the 2023 Africa Heads of States Human Capital Summit with a theme: accelerating Africa's economic growth, boosting youth productivity by improving learning and skills. That is taking place here in Dar es Salaam, the hub of peace. Your Excellencies, we gather here in recognition of the pivotal role that human capital plays in shaping the present and future of our African societies and economies and the global community at large. Human capital is defined as the knowledge, skills, abilities, and the health of individuals, and is the wealth of any nation. It is the driving force behind innovation, productivity, and the sustainable development. Investing in people is not only a moral imperative, but also an economic necessity. May I therefore take this opportunity to thank Her Excellency, Dr. Samia Suluhu, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, for her visionary decision to host this summit, and the World Bank for affording the United Republic of Tanzania an opportunity to host it. On this note, may I, on behalf of the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, welcome Your Excellencies and all distinguished delegates to Tanzania, and in particular to this very important summit. Your Excellencies, the journey to the African Human Capital Summit started in April 2023, when the United Republic of Tanzania accepted to host the summit. Preparations were then launched by Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, on the 19th of May 2023 in this same venue, during which stakeholders were invited to join the government of Tanzania in preparing for the summit. We are grateful that the invitation sent by Her Excellency the President of the United Republic of Tanzania to African heads of state and the government, international partners, and other stakeholders have been honored graciously. The summit is being attended physically by more than 1,000 participants, representing 44 governments and the other partners, and the virtual attendance through various platforms has also enabled extended participation of about 1,300 participants, making a total of 2,300 participants attending this summit. The United Republic of Tanzania values your attendance and the participation, Your Excellencies, and they thank the World Bank for partnering with the United Republic of Tanzania to host this important summit in Tanzania. This positive response is a testimony of the seriousness attached to human capital development and the role it plays in boosting socio-economic growth of our continent. The summit comes at a time when the continent continues to implement Agenda 2063, aiming at transforming Africa into a global powerhouse. To achieve this aspiration, human capital development is a critical component, requiring massive and coordinated efforts by African countries and other partners. This summit is therefore a significant step towards achieving Agenda 2063 and also our pursuit to accelerate the realization of sustainable development goals. The summit provides a platform for sharing knowledge, experiences, and come up with innovative strategies to unleash the power of human capital and the concrete commitments. With the intensive preparations and commitment, as my sister, Madam Victoria said, the political commitment that we have witnessed, we are set for a very successful summit. With these introductory remarks, it is with great humility that I beg to invite Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, to address the summit. Karibu sana Mheshimiwa Rais.
Asante, naomba tukae. May I request the delegates to use their translation tools, because I'm going to talk on my national language. Waheshimiwa wakuu wa nchi na wakilishi wa wakuu wa nchi, Waheshimiwa makamu wa rais mliopo, Mheshimiwa Dr. Hussein Ali Mwinyi, Rais wa Zanzibar na mwenyekiti wa Baraza la Mapinduzi, Waheshimiwa mawaziri wakuu mliopo, wakuu wa misafara, Waheshimiwa mawaziri, makamu wa rais wa Benki ya Dunia Dr. Victoria Kwakwa, ambaye ni makamu wa rais wa Eastern and Southern Africa. Pia natambua uwepo wa Dr. Mamta Murthy, Vice President for Human Capital Development in the World Bank, na ujumbe wote wa Benki ya Dunia mlioko hapa, waheshimiwa mabalozi na wawakilishi wa mashirika ya kimataifa, wawakilishi wa sekta binafsi pamoja na wataalamu mliopo, wageni waalikwa, mabibi na mabwana, habari za asubuhi. Ni furaha kubwa kuwakaribisha nyote nchini Tanzania, lakini kuwakaribisha katika ukumbi huu wa mkutano. Ninamshukuru sana Mwenyezi Mungu kwa kutujalia fursa hii adhimu ya kukutana hapa ili tuweze kujadiliana na kufikia maazimio kuhusu mada hii muhimu na nyeti kwa maendeleo na mustakabali wa bara letu la Afrika, maendeleo ya rasilimali watu. Tulipokea kwa heshima na fahari kubwa fursa ya kuwa mwenyeji wa mkutano huu muhimu na adhimu, na kwa kipekee kabisa nitambue na kupongeza kazi kubwa iliyofanywa na serikali kupitia wizara zetu za fedha na wizara mambo ya nje pamoja na Benki ya Dunia, na vile vile nitambue mchango mkubwa uliotolewa na wadhamini katika kufanikisha mkutano huu. Hakika mmeutendea haki mkutano huu kwa maandalizi mazuri sana. Natambua tuna wageni wengi waliosafiri masafa marefu kujiunga nasi leo, na nitumie fursa hii kuwapa pole kwa machovu ya safari na kuwakaribisha Tanzania. Natumai mmepokelewa vyema na mmekirimiwa kwa mila na desturi zetu za Kitanzania. Karibuni sana. Vile vile nitumie fursa hii kuwashukuru waheshimiwa viongozi na washiriki wote kwa kubali mwaliko wangu na kuungana nasi katika mkutano huu muhimu unaobeba kauli mbiu inayosema kuchochea ukuaji wa uchumi Afrika, kuongeza uzalishaji wa vijana kupitia mafunzo na ujuzi, yani accelerating Africa's economic growth, boosting youth productivity by improving learning and skills. Waheshimiwa viongozi, tunakutana leo kujadili ajenda ambayo ndiyo moyo wa mataifa yetu: uwekezaji katika rasilimali watu, hususan vijana. Mkutano wetu huu wa leo utaamua ni aina ipi ya uwekezaji unahitajika ili kuleta tija na kuchochea maendeleo ya bara la Afrika. Hakuna muda mwingine sahihi wa kujadili haya zaidi ya huu tulionao. Kwa kipindi cha zaidi ya muongo mmoja sasa, bara la Afrika limepitia ukuaji na uimarikaji mkubwa wa uchumi au chumi zake katika sekta tofauti. Hali hii ya ukuaji wa uchumi ilifanya bara kuja na misamiati kadhaa, ikiwemo Africa is rising, lakini pia It's African Century. Misamiati hii ilitokana na vuguvugu la harakati mbalimbali zilizokuwa zikifanyika ili kulikwamua bara letu la Afrika kutoka kwenye utegemezi wa kiuchumi. Kulifanyika jitihada za maksudi kuhakikisha bara hili linajenga uchumi zake kwa kutumia rasilimali zake ili kuweza kujiletea maendeleo. Kwa baadhi ya nchi na kanda, maendeleo haya, ila kwa baadhi ya nchi maendeleo hayakuonekana au yalionekana kwa kiasi kidogo. Ni jambo la kusikitisha kuwa kwa baadhi ya nchi ukuaji huu wa uchumi haujachangia katika kuhakikisha wanajenga uchumi jumuishi wala kuchochea uzalishaji wa ajira mpya, hususan kwa vijana. Aidha, mbali na ukuaji huu wa uchumi, bado bara la Afrika limeendelea kukabiliwa na changamoto mbalimbali kama vile uhaba wa chakula, viwango vikubwa vya ukosefu wa ajira, umasikini uliokithiri na ukosefu wa usawa kwenye jamii. Ni wazi kuwa bara letu bado linahitaji mageuzi makubwa katika nyanja zote muhimu za uzalishaji na maendeleo. Na haya ndiyo malengo na madhumuni ya ajenda ya maendeleo ya Afrika tunayoitaka ya mwaka 2063, ambayo imeweka malengo 7, na hapa najielekeza kuyazungumzia malengo 4, ambayo moja ni Afrika ambayo mafanikio yake yanajikita kwenye ukuaji jumuishi wa uchumi na maendeleo endelevu. 2, Afrika yenye utengamano kisiasa kwa kuzingatia fikra za kimajumui na mwelekeo wa kimapinduzi. 3, Afrika inayozingatia misingi ya utawala bora, demokrasia, haki za binadamu na utawala wa sheria. Na 4, Afrika ambayo maendeleo yake yanatokana na watu kwa kutumia vipaji vyao, hususan wanawake, vijana, pamoja na kutoa makuzi bora kwa watoto. Na hili ndilo lililotuweka leo hapa. Waheshimiwa viongozi, nimeona niyataje malengo haya manne ili kuona uzito na dhima ya majukumu yaliyoko mbele yetu na kutafakari ni aina gani ya uongozi na sera zinazohitajika kuhakikisha tunafikia na kutimiza kwa ukamilifu malengo haya. Ni muhimu sisi kama viongozi tuhakikishe kwamba tunaangalia, tunatathmini na kusimamia mageuzi yote muhimu ili kuliwezesha bara hili litumie uwezo na rasilimali zake kujikomboa kiuchumi. Kama nilivyosema awali, mkutano huu unafanyika kwa wakati muafaka, hasa ikizingatiwa kwamba kwa sasa Afrika ndilo bara lenye vijana wengi zaidi. Takwimu zinaonyesha kuwa ifikapo mwaka 2050 Afrika itatoa nchi 10 zenye idadi kubwa zaidi ya vijana duniani. Kwa mujibu wa World Economic Forum, zaidi ya 60% ya watu wa barani Afrika ni vijana walio chini ya miaka 25. Aidha, inakadiriwa kuwa ifikapo mwaka 2030 Afrika itakuwa na 42% ya vijana wote duniani, na umri wa wastani wa nchi za Afrika ni chini ya miaka 20. Hii inatuonesha kwamba kuna mambo mengi ya kimaendeleo, hususan kwenye mambo ya afya, ili tuweze pia kukuza wastani wa umri kwa Afrika. Hii inamaanisha kuwa bara letu ni bara lenye watoto na vijana wengi. Kwa tafsiri ya kidemografia, habari hii ni nzuri na vile vile ni mbaya kwetu. Hali hii inaweza kuwa nzuri na yenye tija iwapo tutawekeza kwenye rasilimali watu kwa kuhakikisha uwepo wa afya bora, elimu bora yenye stadi za maisha ili kujenga nguvu kazi yenye tija kama ilivyo kwa wenzetu wa bara la Asia. Hatima yetu inaweza kuwa mbaya. Fanya hivyo, tutaongeza idadi ya vijana wasio na ujuzi, wasioajirika na vijana wa kujiingiza kwenye vitendo viovu vya kihalifu na uvunjifu wa amani. Hivyo basi, kwetu sisi tuliopo hapa leo, tujiulize, je, bara tulilolirithi kwa waasisi wetu waliotafuta uhuru wa Afrika ndilo bara tunalotaka kuwarithisha vizazi vijavyo au wajukuu wetu? Je, Afrika tunayoijenga leo ni yenye uchumi endelevu au uchumi unaodumaa? Tukipata majibu hayo, tutalijenga bara letu vyema zaidi. Vile vile majibu ya masuala haya yatatupa mwelekeo wa sera zetu. Ni wazi kwa viongozi wenye maono hujenga sera zao kwenye maendeleo ya watu na kufuatiwa na maendeleo ya vitu. Na hapa mniruhusu ninukuu maneno ya baba wa taifa hili la Tanzania miaka michache kabla kufariki kwake, Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere, wakati akihutubia mkutano wa Umoja wa Mataifa jijini New York. Alisema, na hapa namnukuu, kwamba development is people. People are the target, creators and beneficiaries of anything known as development. Mwisho wa kunukuu. Kwa tafsiri rahisi, alisema maendeleo ni watu, watu ndio walengwa, ndio waanzilishi na wanufaika wa chochote kinachoitwa maendeleo. Kwa mantiki hiyo, hatuwezi kulikomboa bara letu kiuchumi kama hatutaelekeza nguvu zetu kwenye maendeleo ya rasilimali watu, kwa kuwapa maarifa na ujuzi unaohitajika katika kuyatumia na kuyabadilisha mazingira yao kwa manufaa yao. Waheshimiwa viongozi, tunapozungumzia uwekezaji katika rasilimali watu, ni kuhakikisha kwamba uwekezaji unaanza tangu mtoto anapozaliwa, kwa maana upatikanaji wa lishe bora na chanjo stahiki ili kuondoa udumavu ambao mara nyingi hupunguza kiwango cha uelewa na uwezo wa kusoma vizuri kwa watoto hao. Ili kuhakikisha tunaweka msingi mzuri wa elimu, tunapaswa kuwa na maandalizi mazuri ya elimu na hasa elimu ya awali kwa ajili ya kuandaa watoto kimwili, kiakili, kiismu au kijinsia na kiubunifu. Jambo jingine, ili elimu itoe matokeo chanya, ni lazima kuwa na mitaala yenye kukidhi matakwa ya soko la ajira. Kwa mfano, uwepo wa mapinduzi ya 4 ya viwanda yameleta mabadiliko makubwa katika sekta zetu za afya, elimu, biashara, teknolojia pamoja na mahusiano na mwingiliano wa kijamii pamoja na usafiri na usafirishaji. Hivyo basi, ni wajibu wetu kuhakikisha Afrika hatuachwi nyuma. Tunazitumia fursa hivi vizuri. Hatuachwi nyuma kama ilivyokuwa kwenye mapinduzi haya ya matatu yaliyopita. Mapinduzi ya kwanza, ya pili na ya tatu. Haya ya 4, Afrika ni wakati wetu kuyatumia vizuri. Mwasisi wa taifa huru la Afrika Kusini, hayati Mzee Nelson Mandela, alisema, na mimi namnukuu, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." Akimaanisha kuwa elimu ndio silaha yenye nguvu zaidi inayoweza kutumika kubadilisha ulimwengu. Na hapa nichukue fursa hii kueleza umma huu baadhi ya hatua ambazo nchi yetu Tanzania imechukua ili kukuza na kuendeleza rasilimali watu. Moja, tumeamua kutenga fedha nyingi kwa ajili ya afua mbalimbali za lishe na huduma za afya ya uzazi wa mama na mtoto. Na katika hili, mimi kama rais wa nchi nimeingia mikataba na wakuu wa mikoa, kila mkuu wa mkoa kuhakikisha anawajibika ipasavyo katika eneo hili. Lakini la pili ni kuanzisha vituo vya elimu ya awali, yani Early Childhood Development Centers, ambayo tunaendelea kuvieneza nchi nzima. La tatu ni mapitio na maboresho ya sera ya elimu, mitaala na programu za mafunzo ili ziendane na mazingira pamoja na mahitaji ya sasa ya maendeleo. La 4 ni uanzishwaji wa mfuko wa kusaidia kaya maskini TASAF. Lengo la mfuko huu ni kupunguza umaskini na kuboresha upatikanaji wa huduma za afya na elimu. Tangu mwaka 2000 zaidi ya kaya milioni 1 zimenufaika na zaidi ya miradi 731 ya miundo mbinu mbalimbali ya elimu, afya, maji safi na salama, kilimo na mazingira, njia za usafiri na usafirishaji zimetekelezwa. Jengine ni uanzishwaji wa programu ya elimu bila malipo kwenye ngazi za elimu ya awali, elimu ya msingi na hadi sekondari. Watoto wetu wanasoma bila kulipa. Lakini la 6 ni uwekezaji kwenye elimu ya ufundi na mafunzo ya mali, yani vocational education and training, ikiwa ni pamoja na kutoa ujuzi bobezi ili kuongeza tija, ushindani na uwezo wa ndani katika kutumia rasilimali za nchi yetu. 7, kuwezesha vijana kiuchumi kupitia mikopo inayotolewa na halmashauri. Mikopo hii tunatoa 4%, tumezitaka halmashauri kutenga 10% ya mapato yao ya ndani. 4% inatumika kwa kuwakopesha vijana, 4% inatumika kuwakopesha wanawake na 2% inatumika kuwakopesha watu wenye ulemavu. Jambo la 8 ni kuruhusu watoto walioacha masomo, hasa wa kike waliopata ujauzito, kuweza kurudi tena shuleni na kuendelea na masomo yao. Na hapa nataka niseme kwamba jaribio hili lilianza kule Zanzibar, na furaha kusema kwamba kuna watoto ambao walirudi kuanzia form 1 kidato cha 4 wamemaliza university na sasa wako vizuri. Kwa hiyo ni fursa nzuri ya kuwarudisha watoto shuleni. Lakini pia kupitia wizara yetu ya kilimo tuna programu maalum inayoitwa Building a Better Tomorrow kwa ajili ya vijana kujishughulisha na shughuli za kilimo, ufugaji na uvuvi ili kujenga vyema sekta ya kilimo na kufanya sekta hii iweze kuchangia kwa 10% kutoka 4% inayochangia sasa hivi katika uchumi wetu wa taifa. Waheshimiwa viongozi, nimezungumza masuala mengi na kwa kirefu. Sasa naomba mniruhusu niataje kwa mahsusi na kwa muhtasari maeneo muhimu yanaweza kutusaidia kuboresha rasilimali watu ya Afrika ili atusaidie kuongeza mijadala yetu tukiwa hapa. Kwanza, lazima tujidhatiti kutumia rasilimali watu tulionayo kwa manufaa yetu, kwa maana ya reaping the demographic dividend. Idadi kubwa ya vijana tulionayo Afrika ni fursa ya pekee kwa ajili ya mageuzi ya kiuchumi. Badala ya kuacha vijana hawa wakrosi hizo bahari, wapigwe njiani, wazamishwe, kwamba wanakwenda Europe kutafuta maisha bora. Maisha bora watayapata Afrika tukiwaendeleza. Lakini la pili, lazima tuwafundishe watoto wetu kuhusu uzazi wa mpangilio. Kama nilivyosema, Afrika population yetu ni kubwa sana, na population hii inaweza ikatuletea tija au ikatuletea mambo yasiyofaa kama hatukuitumia vizuri. La tatu, kuongeza manufaa kutokana na elimu na mafunzo tunayoyatoa katika nchi zetu. Tuhakikishe elimu tunayoitoa inawapa uwezo vijana wetu kuongeza tija na kujenga uchumi wetu. 4, kuongeza uwekezaji katika sekta nyingine zinazoleta ufanisi katika huduma za elimu na afya. Ni lazima kuwekeza katika miundombinu kama vile njia za usafiri na usafirishaji, kuongeza nishati au umeme, maji safi na usafi wa mazingira. Haya yote tukiyaboresha yanaweza kutusukuma katika kutoa huduma za afya na elimu ili ziwafikie watu wote na ziwe endelevu. Jambo la 5 ni utekelezaji wa programu za hifadhi ya jamii katika uzalishaji, yani implementing productive social safety nets programs katika nchi zetu. Waheshimiwa viongozi, kuzifungua fursa katika kuitumia rasilimali watu ya Afrika ni wajibu wa kimaadili na ni sharti muhimu la kiuchumi, kwani kwa kuwekeza katika hifadhi ya jamii, kuongeza rasilimali fedha kwenye elimu na maendeleo ya rasilimali watu, tunaweza kuijenga Afrika yenye mafanikio jumuishi. Kwa hivyo, inatupasa tuunganishe nguvu za serikali, asasi za kiraia na sekta binafsi ili kufanya uwekezaji unaohitajika na kujenga mazingira wezeshi ya kukua na kuendelea kwa rasilimali hii muhimu ambayo ni watu wetu, vijana wetu. Kwa pamoja tunaweza kujenga mustakabali mwema wa Afrika kwa kuhakikisha ndoto za vijana wetu zinatimia. Waheshimiwa viongozi, wakati nikihitimisha, nisisitize kwamba suala la maendeleo ya rasilimali watu wa Afrika haliwezi kuja kwa kubahatisha na halina mbadala. Lazima tuwe na mipango madhubuti ya kuhakikisha rasilimali watu Afrika inaendelezwa kwa manufaa ya bara hili na kwa maendeleo yetu. Ndugu zangu, baada ya kusema hayo, niseme wakati ni sasa. Inawezekana kila mmoja atekeleze jukumu lake kwa nafasi yake, tuendeleze bara letu Afrika. Asanteni sana kwa kunisikiliza. Asante sana.
May I request you to stand up and we clap our hands. Sasa inawezekana. Can we all say that? The time is now, it is possible. The time is now. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your leadership and for bringing the continent together for this important Human Capital Heads of State Summit here in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Excellencies, up next we have a video that is going to set the stage on how focusing on learning and skills will help propel human capital-led economic growth in Africa. After the video, I will have the honor to invite World Bank Vice President for Human Development, Dr. Mamta Murthy, to give us a deeper reflection of this video. But for now, distinguished delegates, excellencies, is the video. Thank you.
Quite rapidly. So I hope that fixes in your mind that there has been huge progress. The challenge, of course, lies with the quality of schooling. The quality of schooling is not as high as it should be. Again, if we look at children in school today in sub-Saharan Africa, they can expect, because of the expansion in schooling that many of you in the audience have been responsible for, a child today in sub-Saharan Africa can expect to achieve at least 9 years of schooling because of the policies that are in place. But because the quality of schooling is poor, about 45 to 50% of that is lost. So the equivalent number of years of schooling is not 9, it's 4.5. It's about half of that, because very little is being learned in school. Children can progress through school, but it doesn't mean that they leave school having learned everything they should. To contrast that with another continent that I know well, that Victoria knows well, East Asia and the Pacific, an average child today in East Asia and the Pacific can expect to go through 12 years of schooling. There too, there are issues with quality. So about 30% of that schooling is lost because the quality is not high. But if you take away 30% from 12, that's still 9 years of schooling. So in Africa, there are two challenges, both to increase the years of schooling
lakini pia tumewekeza kwenye vyuo vikuu. Tanzania ina vyuo vikuu kama 52, 30 ni proper vyuo vikuu na vilivyobaki ni vyuo vya kati au colleges ambazo zinafundisha mambo tofauti tofauti, hasa mambo ya teknolojia. Lakini katika kuwekeza education tunaangalia pia sasa sifa za walimu. Kwanza wingi wa walimu. Tunaangalia teachers students ratio. Kusema ukweli bado tuko nyuma. Tunajitahidi kuajiri, lakini bado kutokana na wingi wa watoto bado tunapambana. Lakini tunaangalia pia uwezo na sifa za walimu katika level tofauti. Wale wanaosomesha early child education, wanaosomesha primary na wanaosomesha sekondari, kuwajenga katika maeneo yao, vivyo hivyo vyuo vikuu. Lakini tunaangalia pia mazingira ya elimu, na kwenyewe nako kuna cost implication. Pesa nyingi inatumika kwenye kujenga mazingira ya elimu ili mwanafunzi awe na raha na mwalimu awe na raha kusomesha. Kubwa tunaloliangalia mbali ya ujenzi wa madarasa, lakini usafi wa mazingira, water and sanitation katika maeneo ya shule. Kwa muda mrefu nyuma, watoto wa kike ambao walishafika umri wa kuvunja ungo kuwa wakubwa walikuwa wanakimbia shule kwa sababu mazingira hayakuwa mazuri kwa wao wakati wa haja zao kujisafisha na mambo mengine. Lakini sasa tunajenga vyoo vizuri, tunapeleka maji maeneo ya shule, tumeweka mazingira mazuri kiasi ambacho wasichana wakati wote wapo shuleni. Lakini jengine katika kuwekeza kwenye elimu, nilisema mapema, kwanza watoto wetu kuanzia elimu ya awali, early child education, mpaka secondary school, form 6 before entering university. Tumeweka mazingira wanakwenda elimu bila malipo, hawalipi. Lakini wanapokwenda university na vyuo vya kati, tuna mfuko maalum wa maendeleo ya elimu ambao wanafunzi hawa wanakopeshwa na wanakwenda kujisomesha. Watakapopata ajira ndipo wanaporudisha hizo fedha. Lakini katika bajeti iliyopita ambayo tunaitekeleza mwaka huu, tumeondosha pia ada kwenye vyuo vya ufundi na mafunzo ya amali, ili wanafunzi zaidi waingie wasome elimu ya ufundi, tuwajenge na uwezo wa kufanya kazi, uwezo wa kuajirika, ili waweze kwenda kwenye masoko ya ajira. Asante sana.
Thank you, Your Excellency. As a follow-up question, I recognize that I may cover some of the things that you've already covered. That's okay, you can skip them. But in addition to what you have said and your commitment around girls, I wanted to focus a little more on what policy actions you are going to be taking to create an environment where youth can flourish, where that child, that girl, that boy does not feel the need to cross that dangerous sea into Europe and decides to practice their entrepreneurship here, like we heard from the former, from the Deputy Prime Minister.
Asante sana. Ni kweli kwamba katika kuwafanya watoto wetu wapende kukaa nyumbani, kama nilivyosema, la kwanza tunawaingiza kwenye vocational training and vocational studies, mafunzo ya amali na mafunzo ya ujuzi, ili wawe na skills. Na tunaangalia mafunzo ya amali, mafunzo ya ujuzi kwa sasa hivi, kwa maendeleo tulionayo katika wimbi la mapinduzi ya 4 ya viwanda, watoto wetu wanahitaji nini. Kwa maana hiyo tunajenga vocational schools kule waliko. Kwa mfano sasa hivi tuna mradi wa kujenga vocational schools 64 katika kila wilaya ya nchi hii. Kutakuwa na vocational schools. Lakini pia tuna folk development schools ambazo hizi zinapokea wanafunzi ambao wamedrop darasa la 7 au form 4, na wanakuwa wanafundishwa elimu mbalimbali ya ujuzi, skills development, ili waweze kupitia mikopo niliyosema hapa inayotolewa na halmashauri zao, waweze kuchukua mikopo na kuweza kujiajiri wenyewe. Lakini kubwa zaidi tunalolifanya ni rural electrification. Tunapeleka umeme vijiji vyote ili wanafunzi waweze kusoma vizuri kwanza, waweze kufanya practical zao kwenye vocational training, lakini pia waweze kufungua shughuli zao za kujiajiri kule waliko, badala ya kurash kuja mijini au kutaka kuingia tamaa kwenda Ulaya kutafuta green pastures. Tunajitahidi kuprovide kila kinachokuwa lazima ili wabakie hapa.
Boats capsizing in the Mediterranean be a thing of the past. Your Excellency, thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you. I'd like to move on now and invite His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada, President, Republic of Sierra Leone. Again, Your Excellency, the format is the same. Your initial thoughts on this summit and what we need to do as a continent to ensure that, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the Lions on the Move? McKinsey Institute, Lions on the Move, a report that they released, I think, in 2014, if I am not mistaken, which spelled a rosy picture of Africa that was going to be growing and creating jobs for its people. And then I remember another big report, UNICEF, put together again, Generation 2030, I think, report that was called, again, spelling out this huge opportunity for us to realize as Africans. But warning, if we do not change our trajectory in terms of investment in our children, we would be going nowhere. And I'm saying to you, sir, as you address us today, we are in danger of having a disaster and not the dividend. But let me get your thoughts.
Thank you very much. My government is a human capital development government. That was how I termed it even before I started my campaign, because we realized from the in-depth studies that we did before even I embarked on my political journey, that illiteracy, high illiteracy, was a serious hindrance to development in Sierra Leone. So I identified human capital development, and I've taken it through the first term of office. For me, it's not a matter of whether we are ready or not. The need is upon us. And for certain things, you don't have to be ready to embark on them. It is existential if we have to succeed in this 21st century, if we have to move from being at the receiving end of the fourth industrial revolution after having been at the receiving end of all the other revolutions, then we must pre-position Africa by making sure that we invest adequately and consistently in our most precious resource that we have, which is the human capital of Africa. We'll be wasting time to do any other thing in this 21st century, and especially with the looming fourth industrial revolution. We cannot survive, we cannot thrive if we do not position ourselves ahead of the curve. And so, what have I done? I have put aside 22% of discretionary budget of my country, and that goes for education. And I want to assure you that there is efficiency in the use of that, because it's not just the quantum, but also how it is used. We have made sure that we are paying for all, because one of the most difficult aspects is actually access to education. A lot of people are poor. You may say it's $10, but some people cannot even afford that. And so what have we done? We have made universal access to education for every child in Sierra Leone for the past 5 years. And that is still ongoing. But besides universal access, there is another problem, and a huge number of obstacles that make it impossible for certain people. They will start, but they will not continue. So now we are not only paying for kids to go to school, we are also buying core textbooks which are needed in schools. In some of the schools, they do not even have teaching and learning materials. So we have bought that for 12,000 schools in the whole of Sierra Leone. So we provide core textbooks. We provide teaching and learning materials for all the schools that are government schools or government-assisted schools. There is another problem of malnutrition or hunger, which affects certain homes because of their level of poverty. Now we are providing school meals for over 600,000 kids in Sierra Leone. This has not only good outcomes for education or learning, but also and health reasons. And it is also playing into retention and completion. So what we are doing is a comprehensive approach to actually making sure that they don't just have access, but they can stay in school, complete school. And as a result of that, in the whole of West Africa, we are rated as first for completion for girls in West Africa. And we also have a free tuition for girls who do STEM subjects. As a result of that policy, for nearly 200 years history of our university, for the first time, women applied for engineering more than any other since the start of Fulbe College in Sierra Leone. And since I challenged the women folk of Sierra Leone, they have consistently led in all transition exams, including the latest which came out last week. 11 of the best performing students were 8 out of 11 of the best performing students were actually girls. So that mentality that women cannot do or do not have the same mental faculty as we do is beginning to go away. We realize that even menstruation was a problem, because when they are not properly attired, they feel shy to go to school. So what do? My wife, using a particular campaign, has been providing sanitary pads free of charge for all school-going children in Sierra Leone. And I talk about menstruation without any fear or hesitation. For a lot of African homes, especially in Sierra Leone, I don't know for here, men don't talk about menstruation. And I say to them, it's just a biological action. And therefore, we should feel free, even as men, dads, to talk to our children so that they feel comfortable and provide them with the necessary support. So every year, the First Lady goes around, supplies to all the schools, and now government has come in, and we are getting support from other non-governmental agencies and also development agencies, because they have seen the utility. When we don't do that, some girls can lose up to 60, 70 days in an academic year from our own calculation. So that is helping out quite a lot. The other thing was, they can study and study and study, but because of poverty, come the transition exam, maybe to go to secondary school, there is a fee, always. They cannot afford it, they drop out. So what we have done is, we have 3 transition exams, the MPSC, the Beke, and the WAS. We are paying for all of those exam fees. We are paying all the exam fees for all of the kids in Sierra Leone. Even when they do their final transition to go to university, there is always a fee for that. And some of the kids will not get their results for a very long time because they have poor parents. What we have done is, we are providing the money for them to be able to get their results so that they don't have to wait. So access is expensive and very important. But there are a series of other obstacles that can actually nullify the effect of having paid for access if you don't address them. And that is what we have tried to do, a comprehensive approach to providing education. It is the best resource we have. And I must add here that as we talk about immigration to other countries so that they seek greener pastures, I think the youth budget can be a blessing, but we have to invest in education. And when I talk about education, we are talking about the education as a whole, talking about technical, vocational training, numeracy, and literacy, basic literacy. If we do that for our people, we can now use the youth budget. It can become an advantage and not a cause. But if we don't do that, it is going to become a bomb because we have too many youths in Africa.
Absolutely, 100%, Your Excellency. Thank you very much for those opening remarks. Please, help me to thank him. So I think for me, what is really eye-opening is the fact that you, Your Excellencies, are breaking down what has traditionally been a taboo subject amongst African societies, talking about menstruation, talking about what those girl children go through, and not talking about what it means for them to be equal participants as a result of that being a taboo subject. Thank you for breaking it down. We totally appreciate that. But I wanted you to add a little more. You spoke about the importance of access. But how do we ensure that that access is equitable? Because you spoke yourself about the disadvantage of the girl child. And we also know that children who come from poor families are at a disadvantage. I come from such a background. Until one of us, my brother, was educated, we were all destined to stay in the rural areas. We broke the poverty cycle because we got access and it was equitable. How do we ensure that on a bigger scale across the country, across the continent?
Access to education.
Equitable.
Equitable.
Yeah.
We have first what we call radical inclusion. Radical inclusion. It's a policy by our government. And that means that irrespective of your situation, if you are a child in Sierra Leone, you should go to school. Wherever you are, whether you are disabled, in whatever state, no political colors come into play, everybody should go to school. This is radical inclusion. Before this time, there was a ban against pregnant girls going to school in Sierra Leone. And I was in favor of that, that is because of my old mindset. But when I realized that it is secondary victimization of these little kids who become pregnant going to school in their formative years, and then you take them out of school and punish them, and they become a liability to themselves, their community, and so on and so forth. I thought that was too much. And I knew I was wrong. So I made a U-turn. Now, girls who become pregnant, we attend on to the point that they can no longer stay in school. And once they give birth, we make sure they go back to school. And interestingly, they have been performing extremely well because they realize they have made the mistakes. And most times, the mistakes are done with adults, people who are supposed to know better. But we blame the child, we blame somebody in 13, 14, 15 years old, and we want her to carry that blame or sin for the rest of our life. I think that is not. So one of the things we have done is to make sure that whether you are in the village, you can access education. And we are building the necessary digital infrastructure. We have trained more teachers for quality, and also to make sure that they can go as fast as they can to be able to give the quality of education. Because what we have to do in Africa also is not just education. It must be fit for purpose education. Education that we meet the needs of the future, a digital economy. That is what we are entering. So the things we have done as when we were in school, which we are forcing our children to do, are no longer good for them. So we must look at the future and make sure that our children are acquiring the skills that will make them relevant for the future, not what we did. And that is what most of us as parents do. I did law, I want you to do law. I did medicine, you have to do medicine. No. I think you have to discuss with them. And what have we done? The youth who are going out, 30%, 33% of my cabinet are young people. When I say young people, they are youth. 33% of them are also women. I've also passed an act which is, we call the GIWI Act, which makes sure that 30% of all parliamentarians must be women. 30% of all ministers should be women. And I just appointed my cabinet, and I made sure I complied to that, because I passed that bill. And in the corporate world and in other fields of endeavor, we are making sure that nothing less than 30% for now, because this is the very first time we are taking this bold action. Yeah. They are women, right across the region. That is the beginning of making sure that the women feel part of us and they can contribute. After all, their population, they are more than 50% of our population. 100%. So it's like trying to do boxing with one hand behind you. Even a lazy man like me can fight any boxer with one hand behind him.
Absolutely. You're going to lose. You can't do it with one hand. Your Excellency, thank you very much for those thoughts. Thank you. Thank you. And it's interesting. It sounds like, again, you were listening to the youth that were attending this seminar that I told you about. One of the things they said, you know, children speak sometimes a little too forcefully. So they said, we demand that there must be a quota for young people in every cabinet in Africa. And I see that you have already started that work on your front. Thank you very much. Let's please allow me to invite Her Excellency Mariam Chabi Talata, Vice President, Republic of Benin. Again, ma'am, I'd like to invite you to share your thoughts on the summit and the work that we are doing, or that we need to do. I think that's the more important part, what we really need to do, before I invite you to answer my very specific question for your country. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je commence par présenter mes remerciements à Madame la Présidente de la République unie de Tanzanie pour l'accueil, l'hospitalité. Je présente mes hommages aux chefs d'État et de gouvernement ici présents. Je salue les vice-présidents et les premiers ministres ici présents. Le thème qui nous unit ici est le suivant. Sommes-nous vraiment prêts à investir dans le capital humain? Moi, je viens d'un petit pays. Géographiquement parlant, c'est la République du Bénin. Nous sommes tellement petits que pour nous rendre visibles, nous nous appuyons sur le géant qui est à côté de nous. Chaque fois que je rencontre quelqu'un qui ne connaît pas bien la région ouest africaine, qu'il me demande d'où je viens, je suis obligée de dire, je viens d'un pays qui est à côté du Nigeria. Vous voyez? Et ce pays, tout petit géographiquement parlant, rien que ce n'est que 112 000 km². Ce pays a de grandes ambitions. C'est un pays qui, depuis 2016, rêve de se révéler au monde. Mais comment se révéler au monde quand on n'a que 112 000 km²? Quand on n'a pas de ressources minières, comme le Congo, comme certains États qui rendent visible ou qui forcent la visibilité. Nous, au niveau de notre pays, le Bénin, nous ne sommes pas seulement prêts à investir dans le capital humain, nous sommes condamnés à investir dans ce capital pour nous rendre visibles. Parce qu'autrement, nous disparaissons. Et comment nous investissons? Comment nous faisons des efforts pour qu'au niveau de ce capital humain, notre pays soit visible? Nous avons été colonisés par les Français. Et au niveau de notre pays, le Bénin, c'est l'enseignement général qui l'emporte sur l'enseignement technique et professionnel. Cela veut dire quoi? Que pendant 6 décennies, au niveau de notre pays, nos jeunes ont été formés pour de longues études qui ne donnent pas droit à l'emploi. Et notre pays, le Bénin, pour aller de l'avant depuis 2016, a fait le choix de réformer son système éducatif, de faire en sorte que les tendances s'inversent. Par le passé, 70% de notre population scolaire se retrouvait dans l'enseignement secondaire général. Nous travaillons cette fois-ci à inverser les tendances, à faire en sorte que 70% se retrouvent dans l'enseignement technique et professionnel. Mais en faisant quoi? En prenant un certain nombre de mesures. Les Béninois sont connus pour leur engouement pour les études, leur engouement pour les longues études, parce qu'on croit que c'est ça qui fait l'homme. Quand tu ne vas pas très très loin dans les études, tu n'es pas considéré. Alors que maintenant, nous avons constaté qu'on peut aller très loin dans les études et rester chômeur toute la vie. Il y a de la qualité dans l'enseignement que l'on donne. C'est la raison pour laquelle nos premières actions en 2016 ont été d'arrêter les créations anarchiques d'écoles et de collèges. Les villages réclament des écoles, même s'il n'y a que peu de gens pour y aller. Les villes réclament des collèges. Depuis 2016, nous avons suspendu cet élan-là, parce que ça ne mène nulle part. Parce que pendant que l'on réclame la construction d'écoles, la création d'écoles, nous manquons d'enseignants qualifiés. Nous manquons d'enseignants qualifiés. Nous n'acceptons plus qu'on ouvre d'écoles que lorsqu'on a la garantie que ces écoles seront animées par des enseignants de qualité. S'il n'y a pas d'enseignants de qualité, pas d'ouverture d'école. C'est la politique que nous mettons en œuvre depuis 2016. Et nous avons procédé à quoi? À l'évaluation systématique des enseignants qui animent, qui donnent les cours dans nos écoles et nos établissements du secondaire. Le problème de la qualité du capital humain dépend souvent des enseignements qu'on donne à ceux que l'on forme. Chaque élève est à l'image de son enseignant. Ça n'a pas été facile. La lutte pour la qualité n'a pas été facile. L'évaluation n'a pas été facilement acceptée par nos enseignants. Il y en a même qui ont résisté, qui ont refusé de se faire évaluer, qui ont été radiés parce qu'ils ont refusé de se faire évaluer. Si c'est le prix à payer, il fallait le payer. Tout récemment, il y a eu des pourparlers qui ont permis donc de réinsérer certains. Mais il fallait évaluer chaque enseignant. Et ceux qui n'ont pas les compétences requises au niveau des enseignants ont été soumis à des formations. Ils ont subi des formations pour être à même de dispenser des cours de qualité. J'ai dit que nous autres, nous sommes condamnés à investir sur le capital humain. Pourquoi? Parce que tous les 25 ans, notre population double. Si elle double, nous devons tout faire pour qu'elle soit de qualité. Notre ambition, qui est celle de nous révéler au monde, ne peut pas voir le jour si nous n'avons pas un, comment je vais dire, un personnel qualifié. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle nous avons, au niveau de notre pays, travaillé à créer un grand nombre de lycées techniques, un grand nombre de centres de formation professionnelle. Nous avons envoyé en formation ceux qui vont animer ces centres de formation de façon à ce que, à leur retour, ils puissent intégrer ces écoles-là. Nous avons, au niveau de notre pays, conscience du fait que un adulte équilibré demain, c'est un adulte qui a eu une vie saine pendant son enfance. Et notre gouvernement investit énormément dans les cantines scolaires. L'année dernière, j'ai représenté le chef de l'État, le président Patrice Talon, en Italie. Parce que notre pays, le Bénin, a été désigné champion mondial de l'alimentation scolaire. 75% de nos écoles ont une cantine scolaire. Notre ambition, c'est de faire en sorte que tous les villages, toutes les villes plutôt, aient des cantines. Aujourd'hui, nous avons couvert la plupart de nos villages en cantine scolaire. Il ne nous reste que les villes. Voilà.
That's great work. That's great work. That's great work, Your Excellency. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very interesting how you have dealt with the issue of teachers. I live in South Africa, and we have a very strong trade union, and the issue around trying to make sure teachers are competent and they are assessed and they do their job consistently. It's certainly been a very thorny one. Great lesson. Hopefully they can take that lesson as well. Before I let you go, one more quick comment, very quickly if you can. Have you had to deal with the problem of higher dropout rates for school children, especially amongst girls? I want to know how you have dealt with that one. Dropout rates amongst the children that you get into school. You explained that you have a problem of overcapacity, but I imagine even in that overcapacity, you still have other children that don't come to school when they are supposed to come to school.
S'agissant de l'abandon, de la déperdition scolaire, surtout la déperdition des filles, nous mettons en œuvre une gamme variée d'activités. Nous savons que certaines filles abandonnent les écoles, la scolarité, parce qu'elles n'arrivent pas à trouver les conditions adéquates d'hygiène au niveau de l'école. Depuis 2020, la première dame de notre pays, à travers la Fondation Claudine Talon, met en œuvre un programme de distribution de couches aux filles pour limiter les taux d'abandon. Nous sommes aidés par l'UNICEF qui, depuis des décennies, accompagne notre gouvernement en mettant à la disposition de nos filles des kits scolaires composés de livres, de manuels, de cahiers et d'un petit budget pour les charges diverses de l'école. Nous sommes également appuyés tout récemment par la Banque mondiale qui nous aide à mettre à la disposition des filles scolarisées du primaire et du secondaire un fonds. 30 000 filles sont impactées par ce fonds. Les filles du primaire reçoivent par jour 350 francs CFA et les filles du secondaire 450 francs CFA pour les accompagner dans leur scolarité. Ce sont là les actions que nous menons au niveau donc des populations scolaires féminines pour limiter les taux de déperdition. Mais ce n'est pas tout. Depuis 1990 au Bénin, les filles du primaire et du secondaire ne payent pas la scolarité. La scolarité est totalement gratuite dans notre pays.
Just girls? Just girls?
Oui, pour
Just
les
the
filles.
girls?
Oui, pour le moment.
Okay, boys
on va
pay,
atteindre les
girls
hommes
don't pay.
après. Oui,
Fantastic.
voilà. Depuis 90.
Positive discrimination. Positive discrimination. Your Excellency, thank you very much for your contribution. May I invite His Excellency Cleopas Dlamini, Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Eswatini. Again, Your Excellency, it's your opening thoughts. If you're able to bunch them together tightly and we get the message across, and then I'll come to you with my very specific question, especially made for you.
Special meant for me?
Yes, sir. It's coming.
Thank you. Let me take this opportunity to thank the government of the United Republic of Tanzania, and in particular to thank President Samia Hassan for the excellent arrangement which they've put into this for those who have arrived just today, I have to say they missed a lot because of what we saw at the dinner yesterday. I see President Chakwera is regretting. We had magicians literally dancing, I don't know what to say, standing on their head, on top of another head. It was marvelous. But now coming to the subject matter before us here, I think it has already been said that it's not a question of whether you want to invest in education or whether you are ready. You have to invest in education, especially if you are in African state. If you look at the proportion of youth relative to the entire population, you can say that if you did anything other than invest in education, you'd be playing with fire. Today we learned that there's a difference between the number of years that you spend at school and the actual education that you get. You can have 10 years of schooling, but 6 years of effective education. And that was quite enlightening. I've always thought about it, but I've always known that rural schools perform poorly compared to urban schools. And I mean, and this is because of the effective years of education. Rural schools are short of, they have certain disadvantages. They may not have computers, they may not have libraries and laboratories, basics like electricity and water, which we take for granted in towns, but they are short in rural areas. You could talk about the teacher-student ratio, but if you don't have these facilities, it means nothing. The figures will just be deceiving you. In Eswatini, we have made very major strides in as far as investment in education is concerned. In our National Development Plan, education, that's 2023-27, education is one of the major pillars of this plan. We want to foster social and human capital development and nurture skills base able to adopt innovative technology. A lot has been said about the fact that today it is technology, not just education that is matters. Eswatini was amongst the first countries to be a member of the World Bank Human Capital Project Initiative. Human capital is one of 2 high-level objectives of our plan. In our country partnership program with the World Bank, we have put a lot of emphasis on education, especially primary education. In Eswatini, since 2010, primary education is free. The only thing that is lacking is that it is not compulsory. And I think I can say now that that's a gap lacking. Because it is free, we should make it compulsory, that every child should go to school. But at the moment, it is not. So the enrollment rate at primary school is in excess of 95% because it is free. However, as you advance to the higher level, there's a tendency to drop because people have seen primary education being free. There's a tendency to think that it's probably not an expense that people must face. But we are progressing towards making sure that high school is also made free. The quality of education itself, as I've already said, is a major factor in making sure that what we develop from what we gain from that education is in fact effective. So what we have done now with the we have created tertiary institutions, post-tertiary institutions such as TVETs and other colleges that teach skills-based kind of learning. Because what we see is that when people drop out, maybe after secondary school, they tend not to have the right skills for the job. So we have training that we get from different countries that help us with this, and we teach these skills to the schools, so that the children who leave school and are not yet ready for work, they can be trained. Even illiterate people, motor mechanics, electricity, and all sorts of things like that.
Sure.
So this is what we are trying to motivate and encourage. But we will continue to invest again in even at university level. We are introducing now medicines and other schools like that, and so that people can have practical skills that can help in the future. Our budget is the highest proportion of the budget, if you take in terms of overall expenditure, goes to education and health. Sure. Those are the sectors that take a higher proportion of our budget. Infrastructure, of course, is not neglected, physical infrastructure, but this is the main area of focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you. I think the issue around skills is an important one. I can tell you that we have a small newsroom in our team in Johannesburg, and the kids that are coming through from the universities, we struggle to get them to quickly integrate and become active participants in generating news. So there needs to be something done to connect the TVET colleges and the actual work environment. It's a continuing challenge across the continent, there's no doubt about that. But I wanted to ask you to talk to a small little tabunyana a subject, since we are touching taboos today. How do we work with culture to ensure that while we're respecting our cultural norms, we are also at the same time ensuring that every child who's entering this new age of technology and other things does so from a position of strength? I ask the question because traditionally our cultures have, as we have all been hearing here, looked down upon the girl child.
Thank you. I think in our environment we are seeing less and less of that discrimination, especially at school-going level. I don't know, I cannot say the same as people progress in life, in parliament, in promotion, but at the level at school, that discrimination is probably not as explicit as it was in the past.
Let me be more explicit, Your Excellency. I was trying to say that are girls exposed to the same skill set opportunities as the boys? I.e., can that girl who dreams of being an aeronautical engineer be able to do so at the same time that a boy child is able to do so? Because we have seen a situation where girls are not getting some of these opportunities.
I suspect they lack role models. It's because she does not have a role model. She has the perception that it is a man's skill, and that is something that needs to be addressed. I think a role model, even in the family, if you are a mechanic or a doctor and the mother is a nurse, the tendency is the boy child will want to be a doctor. So I think this is the attitude that we need to address almost directly. But in terms of financing at school, the opportunities should be the same.
I totally agree with Your Excellency. Thank you. Thank you. So we need to normalize it, that a girl child gets as much chance as the boy child. We need to make it an everyday thing. Thank you for your contribution. Let me move on. We have two excellencies remaining that we need to get to and get their views. May I invite His Excellency Hamza Abdi Bare, Prime Minister, Federal Republic of Somalia. Okay. Before you start, Your Excellency, I wanted to tell you that I personally have adopted Somalia as my country in terms of our coverage, because I know where Somalia is coming from. 1991, I was in Nairobi covering that war. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, brother. Esteemed heads of states and governments, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to be amongst you today here as we discussed a question that is important to our future of our continent. Are we ready to invest in the education and productivity of African youth? The answer I have been contemplating is we have no choice but to be ready. In the case of Somalia, although Somalia has established the right to education for all, millions of Somali children and youth lack of foundational skills in reading. Tackling learning poverty in Somalia is a complex challenge that is made worse by a number of issues. I consider the next 5 obstacles to be the most critical. First, I want to talk about the some challenges that we are facing, then maybe later on I come to the solutions that we are committed to undertake to fix these problems in our capacity. First, obstacle is the pervasive conflict insecurity and prolonged instability. Somalia has, as you know, all gone through some very challenging times in the past few decades. The ensuing instability has disturbed the functioning of schools and uprooted students and teachers. However, extremist groups such as Shabab, significantly contribute to the learning preference in Somalia. They frequently attack schools and education infrastructure. They target educational facilities, teachers, and students as part of their broader campaign to instill fear and exert control over people. Secondly is the limited infrastructure and resources. Infrastructure is insufficient school buildings, limited access to basic facilities such as clean water, and absence of proper transportation for girls and the children in remote areas, and shortages in learning materials are all major bottlenecks. Third is a difficult in attracting and retaining quality teachers. Due to inadequate salaries and limited professional opportunities, teaching has become one of the least favorite professions in Somalia. If someone, for example, has a unique capacity or competent or unique skill, they would prefer to work in the UN or international organizations where they would be paid 10 times the salary of teachers at the very least. Fourth, limited access to foundational education. Statistics indicate that only half of the children in Somalia are enrolled in primary school. This disparity is even worse in rural areas where only a third of children are enrolled in primary school. Socioeconomic factors such as poverty constitute the biggest factors stopping families from sending their children to school. And fifth, and perhaps the most impactful factor, is climate change. And climate change is the key factor in the disruption of educational infrastructure. It is also the leading cause of forced displacement and immigration, reduced livelihood opportunities, poor health and sanitation, and increased water and food insecurity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and for introducing, I think, a subject matter that is all around us, that all of us, wherever we are, which part of the continent we're coming from, is certainly one that we talk about every single day. By the way, the issue around no one wanting to be in teaching isn't unique to you. Across the continent, teaching is no longer the revered profession it used to be, because teachers are not, may I say, well paid. It's not paying anymore. And people who are passionate about teaching have been forced to leave the profession and move on to others. It's something that we should reflect on and find a way of glorifying so we can get our teachers back into the profession. Your Excellency, I wanted to follow up one more question for you, and this is around the challenge of tackling learning poverty. I think we heard the figures, they are terrible figures. We are all to blame on the African continent. I wanted to know what you are doing to tackle that learning poverty.
Thank you very much. As you all may be aware, the government of Somalia has undertaken a comprehensive campaign this past year to eradicate extremist elements across the country to bring the peace first. And you can only imagine the strain these activities would place on our national spending. However, despite the fiscal strains and limited resource, we have demonstrated our committed to expanding access to education and tackling learning poverty by taking specific policy actions and investing in the solutions to address the bottlenecks and challenges facing the educational ecosystem in Somalia. Firstly, we began by investing in skilled teachers. This past year, we have competitively recruited 3,000 teachers, increasing the number of teachers in the government payroll by more than 300%. Secondly, we aimed to address the challenge of access to quality education by allocating resources to build or rehabilitate schools. Third, we aimed to address socioeconomic disparity by providing school guarantees and ensuring that no child is left behind. The small investment we are making today will allow education to be the catalyst for lasting peace, prosperity, and unity in Somalia. With our collective, as Africans, with our collective efforts, we can foster enabling environment for Africa's youth to unleash the untapped potential of our rich continent. I would like to conclude and to express Somalia's deep commitment to investing in its people, and I am pleased to announce that Somalia is joining the Human Capital Project Country Network as the 89th member. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for anticipating my last question as well. You have already declared the commitment. I'm coming back to Your Excellencies to come for my one commitment from you as we close. If I can come to you, Prime Minister Dlamini, your one commitment to us here listening today about what you're doing to advance our goal of ensuring that we realize the demographic dividend. Just one.
I think the main thing that we need to do is to invest, improve the quality rather than the quantity of education. I just mentioned a few things there, laboratories, libraries in the schools, and of course the basics, electricity and all. If we can just invest in those infrastructural things, maybe we can improve the quality and not the quantity of education.
You're committing to improving the quality of education. Thank you, Your Excellency. Madam Talata. Your Excellency, Talata, your one commitment to the summit in terms of what you're going to do to push so that we're able to realize the demographic dividend. It looks like it still works, yes.
Au niveau de notre pays, le Bénin, je l'ai dit tantôt, notre objectif, c'est de nous rendre visibles et d'inverser les tendances. nos jeunes ont coutume de traverser des pays, de traverser des océans pour aller chercher les meilleures formations, les meilleurs emplois à l'extérieur. Nous voulons que désormais ce mouvement s'inverse, comme le cas observé tout récemment entre l'Espagne et le Maroc. J'ai suivi un documentaire dans lequel il est dit que de plus en plus de jeunes Espagnols traversent la mer pour aller chercher donc de l'emploi au Maroc. Nous voulons faire de notre pays un pôle d'excellence en ce qui concerne la qualité, en créant une cité internationale de l'innovation et du savoir qui offre un cadre d'accueil à des institutions de formation africaines et internationales.
Yeah.
C'est notre objectif.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you. If I can come to you, that's Your Excellency President Bayo, Sierra Leone.
Thank you very much. I think my commitment would be to make sure that the youth are in the front seat of everything that we do about them. I have started, and I will make sure that that is entrenched and becomes the norm.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. Sorry. Thank you very much for your commitment to the youth. We appreciate it. Your Excellency, President Hassan.
Kwa upande wa Tanzania tuna commit kuendelea kuwekeza kwa watoto na vijana ili kujenga taifa lililo bora, na commitment yetu haitaishia ndani ya taifa lakini hata kwenye program zetu za kikanda, regional programs. Tutahakikisha tunawekeza ili tusome kwa wengine na wengine wa nchi jirani wasome kwetu kwa maendeleo ya bara letu. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency. I'd like to apologize to His Excellency.
Can I say the last word?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the last word is to the fellow African heads of state and government.
Yes.
There was a philosopher who said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance.
Sure.
So ignorance is what has landed us here.
Yeah.
So let's now invest in education.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge His Excellency Demeke Mekonnen, Deputy Prime Minister, Federal Republic, Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. First, sorry, sir, for forgetting about you. I was getting so excited with the stories I was hearing. I was coming to the commitments and I wanted to get the commitments so I could have my lunch, but my apologies, sir. Can I invite you to reflect on the summit themes, and then we'll come to the very specific issue we'd like to discuss with you about Ethiopia. I'm hoping it's working. Yeah. It's alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Godfrey. First, I would like to express my profound appreciation to the government of the United Republic of Tanzania for hosting this summit successfully. And I also thank the World Bank for organizing this timely summit in collaboration with the government of Tanzania. Perhaps in my country, during the last 2 years, during the challenging times, the World Bank was with us. So you really deserve to be recognized and appreciated on such critical interventions and support. It is, to me, it is high time to invest in people. I really appreciate the motto. It is high time and very timely for us. Human capital development is the entry point to sustain development and to address inclusive agenda as a whole in Africa. As a rising continent, we have to focus and we have to invest on human development areas. Today, Ethiopia, human capital development is our areas of focus agenda, and we try to align this agenda with our 10 years development plan and cascaded to different implementing bodies in this regard. As the few pillar agendas on us. The issue of access. Today we are managing about 30 million students from pre-primary to tertiary education program. 30 million. From this, we're also 5.2 million students are benefiting from school feeding programs, especially in drought-affected areas, in remote and in the pastoralist areas, and in other pocket areas. The school feeding program is really very important issue for kids, especially for girls, for access and even for quality issues. The second one is the quality issue. To ensure the quality issue, we developed a package, a school development program, leadership program, curriculum development, and other necessary inputs around the one. This is really very important for successful learning outcomes and the like. The third one is about inclusive. Education should be inclusive in terms of gender, in terms of area, in terms of special needs and the like. This is very critical and important one, and we're working on that. And the other one is free. Education should be free, especially for primary and secondary schools. In our country, in Ethiopia today, from primary to secondary education, nearly 28 million students. The school service is free at all. This is a really very challenging business and responsibility. Education is capital intensive. So to address and to sustain this, education needs a serious commitment and the stakeholders' mobilization around this agenda. The other is affordability. In tertiary education program, nearly 80% of the cost covered by government, around 10% covered by students. That is a reasonable and affordable cost-sharing mechanism at tertiary education level. Generally, when you talk about education, the learning outcome has to be prudent, and that should address the need of the economy, the need of the industry, and the relevance issue is very critical. Based on this, we're trying to assure quality and sustainable relevance programs across the country. My final point on this part is when you talk about human capital development, health, education, water, agriculture, all pro-poor sectors are very important. Our approach in terms of budget and leadership is we're focusing on poverty-oriented sectors. For example, 60% of our budget allocated to pro-poor sectors, to education, to health, to water, agriculture, to ensure nutrition, food security programs, and others. And again, in education, 22% of our annual budget allocated to education, and nearly 14% of our budget allocated to health program. Our plan in the upcoming times, especially by 2030, to increase this 22% to 24%. Now, from our GDP, 4% of our budget goes to education. This is very challenging and needs a serious effort to sustain this. Here, but with a serious challenge and serious crisis, and to sustain that and to keep the momentum, human development issue is a survival and existential issue to Africa and to my country, Ethiopia.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I hear the clear political commitment to ensuring that education is prioritized. But how are you doing it in this environment? Whereas we have been talking about everywhere, fiscal space is limited because the priorities that are competing for the money that you have are so many. How does education survive in that environment and get more so we do more?
Thank you. As I said it before, it is capital intensive and very challenging. But all education actors has to march together towards this agenda. Development partners, government, the community at the grassroots levels, private sectors, and other players together. Here, partners, development partners also. And then, here government, the political leaders has to play. As His Excellency the President said it in the previous panel, we have to play as a role model, the leaders, and again, mobilize the community and other partners. And then, we're trying to expand our revenue capacity to increase and to address towards these priority areas. But the major players here, the communities. The schools has to be owned as the grassroots level by the local community, the parents and other players together. All these efforts will reach to this trajectory to address this problem.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Would you have one final commitment for us? Yes? One final commitment that you commit to achieving?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really, the issue of deliverables is very critical. Here, my commitment, number one, political commitment. Leaders has to be committed. We are committed for this. Second, allocating the proper resource and mobilizing all actors. And this program has to be owned by the communities and creating conducive environment to development partners and other actors. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. And thank you, Your Excellencies, for your patience, for your time, for your insights. Thank you again. And we resume the program. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excellencies, a bigger round of applause to our distinguished presidents. Can we stand up as they take their seats? And let's continue to clap their hands. we are going to have photos taken. This is a very high-level event to miss a photo moment. So I am going to announce the groups as follows. The first picture will be taken by the presidents. The 7 presidents who are present here will take the first picture. The second picture will be taken, led by the president of Zanzibar and the vice presidents, deputy prime ministers, the prime ministers that are present here will take the second picture. This will also include the Minister of Finance, who is also representing the President of the Union of Comoros and the chairs of the AU, the World Bank, Madam Victoria Kwaka and Madam Mamta Murthy will also be on this picture, as well as Mama Graka Machel, who is the Deputy Chair of the Elders. Thank you.